to Yesterday, Today, Tomorrow. My name is Mariana Cordier, and I am your host. I am coming to you from my home via Zoom. Mental health is a phrase we hear often, but we may not appreciate its full meaning and everything it affects. Mental health is part of our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It influences and guides in how we think, feel, and act. Also, it helps us determine how we handle stress, relate to others, and make choices. Mental health is an important factor for every stage of life, from childhood, adolescence, to adulthood. To help me discuss and review the importance of mental health, I have two guests joining me today. Stephanie Rosen, she's the Executive Director for NAMI Montgomery County, and Gloria Aparicio Blackwell, she's a producer of this show and contributor. Welcome, ladies. Thank you for joining me today. I wanted to start with Stephanie. What does, for the audience that is unfamiliar with NAMI, what does it stand for?
NAMI stands for the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and I am the executive director of our local affiliate. So we cover Montgomery County, Maryland. There are 650 different NAMIs across the country, and we all work together in alliance to improve the lives of all affected by mental illness, whether they be caregivers or individuals living with mental illness. And all 650 organizations, we have the same mission, but we all have different various programs that we offer locally.
Mental health and mental illness, I think actually people probably believe mental health has to do only with mental illness. And you even hear sometimes people say, well, I'm not crazy, but you know, there's a wide range of needs and services that are available that should not be ignored. Can you expand on that?
Sure. So there is kind of a book that gets published that describes what Western medicine has deemed the whole range of mental illnesses, or as we usually call them, mental health conditions. However, we cannot ignore that the word mental illness is in our organization's name. But so mental health conditions, are you right? It's a huge range of disorders. You have to go to school for a very long time in order to be able to diagnose someone. And what's important for the layperson is not to be able to diagnose yourself or diagnose your loved one, but to be able to recognize when someone's struggling or when someone may have changes in personality or inability to function with friends, with family, with coworkers, or at work or school, and when to seek the help of a professional who has gone to all those years of school and can then diagnose. Because the brain's an extremely complicated part of our body. There's so much about our brain we don't understand yet. And so that's part of the reason why diagnosing mental health conditions is so difficult. Our best advice is see a professional. They're the ones who can make an accurate diagnosis and then determine treatment. But it is up to all of us to maintain mental health and to seek help when needed.
Right, because there's a multitude of reasons why mental illness may develop. It may not be just genetic or chemical in the brain. It could be from an injury. It can be from environmental. I know that most of our veterans that have seen action or war, they suffer from post-traumatic stress and many others, you know, the first responders and such. So it's not just about you know, someone who maybe, you know, has a condition that requires medication. There may be folks who need rehabilitation. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there's a couple of things that yes, the brain is complicated and we do know a lot about it. We don't know everything. We do know that mental health conditions do have a biological basis. You look at identical twin studies to see, you know, if one identical twin develops schizophrenia, what is the likelihood that someone with the exact same genetics, so their identical twin, will develop it? It is not 100%. And this means that there's an environmental component as well. And you named one of those environmental components, which is trauma. We do know that trauma can lead to a mental health condition. It does not always lead to a mental health condition. And so that's the complicated part, is that we're all people and our brains are all different and we react to trauma differently. And, one set of symptoms, so depression can look completely different on two different people. There's a whole long list of symptoms, and one person could have a portion of that list and another person could have another portion of that list, but still fall under that same diagnosis. So
And
yeah,
I would think that the people around us, our family and friends, are a big component of helping ourselves kind of realize that self-awareness that something might be going on. Because I mean, sometimes I think it's particularly for those who have not typically have had difficulties, and then all of a sudden they are.
yeah.
How do you deal with that? What's your recommendation for those watching that have observed or realized something's going on?
The thing that we always tell people to look for is changes in personality. And a lot of us are seeing that at this time. This time in our lives is stressful. So looking for changes in personality that affect your life. So does it affect your sleep? Does it affect your eating? Does it affect your ability to have a relationship with your family? Does it affect your ability to work? And I think I know I can say, yes, all of the above has happened to me in this 9 months when our lives have been turned upside down. But that doesn't mean I do happen to live with a mental health condition, but it means see someone. It means see a professional who can determine, are your current coping mechanisms working? Do we need to add a couple more coping mechanisms to your toolbox because things may be, just too hard to handle with the way that you've been coping previously? Or do you need to see a psychiatrist and perhaps try medication or some other kind of treatment? There's a lot of different treatment options, including sleep, water, exercise, healthy eating. So there's a lot.
I appreciate that with the self-care. I think Gloria and I have heard on just about every show we ever do that it's self-care is super important, healthy exercise, eating, and getting some air. And some of us aren't so good at it and other of us are great at it. But Gloria, I love the fact that you're joining us on the show, because as a professional, a busy, very busy professional who, working for the University of Maryland, College Park, going to many events and all of this stuff, and then all of a sudden screeching kind of to a halt, with this pandemic, although I was really trying hard not to mention the pandemic, and, dealing with new things, changes, meetings and Zoom and working from home and everything. How is it from your perspective as a professional? How has this impacted you?
Well, Mariana and Stephanie, it's great to be here today and talking about this, because it's very critical, and particularly when the work is involving communities, being out and being people. And my energy is driven by hanging around with people. And so now this is a very different ball game, different situation. So yes, we had to, at the beginning it was really hard, but then later on you start finding those coping mechanisms. Thank God I got the opportunity not to be going into then taking medicine, but just to be increasing my level of exercise. And as I mentioned to you, Mariana, right now I said I'm going to practice the way of doing nothing and not feel guilty about it. Because
I gotta stop you there, because when you told me that there is an art of enjoying doing nothing, I was like, okay, I need the rules for that, because I feel so guilty when I'm doing nothing.
Listen, I just decided that I'm fortunate to work for an institution that they give us some time off during the holiday season. So I spend it a little bit. So I'm taking 2 weeks off. And I told my team, listen, I'm going to disconnect. I'm going to try to, it's just taking a 2 weeks break from the computer. Well, now I'm not following my own instructions right now, but the beauty is, it's just the ability to just sit down. I was just watching one of the network here, watching to make cookies. So I'm entertaining myself. I know how to do laundry. I know how to do all these cleaning things because it's something to do at home. I just said, nope, I'm just going to sit down. And you know what? And it's so fun. And just having my mind going in different directions, and I'm paying attention to it.
Well, it's something that is interesting because the mind does need to rest. And I think that in today, before you even had the pandemic, with all our electronics and our devices, I forgot my phone in the car one day and I almost had a heart attack. I didn't have it. And I realized how dependent I was and how much screen time I was actually spending, because in my mind, screen time is only on the computer and not on the phone, but it is actually a computer.
Everything.
And after a while, when I tried this disconnect during Thanksgiving, I was more stressed out about trying to disconnect than if I just continued to connect. And I realized that it's not so easy. And Stephanie, what do you think about, what do you guys in your organization tell people to do?
I think one of the hardest things is there's not a one size fits all when it comes to coping mechanisms, when it comes to relaxation. Jogging may be an amazing outlet for one person, and it may be so stress inducing for the next person. It's up to us to figure out, what brings us joy, and what we can do, with our given circumstances. I've got a 2-year-old at home. And so, my time off is going to look a little different than someone who, has different demands in their life.
Well, Gloria, what did you find in your quest to enjoy nothing? How did that work, or how's it working?
Well, I have discovered that I have an instinct to do crochet, and crochet is very simple. As a matter of fact, I'm showcasing one of my art, so I just did this
Very nice.
headband. So, but it has given me the opportunity because it's quiet. I let my mind either listen to music or just wander, because you have to your mind is going to be talking to you regardless. And on top of that, if you're always busy, the mind and also doing work is going to be exhausting to you. So just sit down, and if you can, of course, I don't have a 2-year-old. I know that's going to have an undivided attention, just that alone. But having the opportunity to sit down, relax, and just being there. And we don't take time because we always, with this demand, we have to be busy. This culture here is just to be busy. You have to be productive. If there is not a moment that you need to be taking just to do nothing. That's unheard of. And the reality is we all need that. And just walking, like you said, jogging might not be the way. So how about walking? It doesn't have to be miles or miles, but just around the block. With the pandemic, finally, I got to meet my own community. I never spent time in my community. This time I explored, oh my God, there's a park here. Oh, there's a beautiful trees. Never realized that. So I said that the pandemic, yes, I have brought a lot of negative things, a lot of things that were painful, that is painful right now. But at the same time, it gave us some time to pause at some moment.
And I wanted to mention, NAMI has a website for the audience if they're interested, but their website is also catered to caregivers and to individuals who are trying to help someone, whether it's a friend or a family member, who has or is struggling. And I find that sometimes we forget about our caregivers and folks who are trying to help us and care about us, because they may not understand the struggle of the person, but they understand that there is a struggle ongoing and what possible resources are available. Stephanie, can you give us the website?
Sure. NAMI National's website is NAMI.org. You can find your local affiliate from that website. Our website's pretty simple. It's NAMIMC, as in Montgomery County.org. We have a lot of similar resources and resources tailored to our community on that website. But you're right. So NAMI has done a lot of studies on caregiving and on the family stress of having someone living with mental illness. It does not just affect that individual. It really does affect the family, for good and bad. I'm not saying that if you have a sibling or a daughter or a parent living with mental illness, that it is all bad. That is not true. But there is a learning curve. It's when that you can struggle to get a diagnosis, you can struggle to find the right treatment. A treatment can stop working, and then you have to find a new treatment. There's a lot of different complexities with different mental illnesses, and we find that caregivers really need support and education that they do not get from our traditional mental health care system. So the patient gets a lot of help, but the family member, who's sometimes very involved in the care, doesn't necessarily get the same support and education. And so NAMI provides free classes and support groups for caregivers. We have an 8-week session class. I took the class because I have a loved one living with mental illness, changed my life. I started teaching the class, and then next thing I know, I feel like I became executive director. So that's how much I believe in the class. It's called Family to Family. We have support groups. We're doing everything virtually now, so we're still here for you. We have classes for parents of children because there's a lot of different resources available than if your loved one's an adult. And then on that same side, we have classes and we have support groups for individuals living with mental illness. I think one stat that I remember from reading a study is that caregivers of individuals living with serious mental illness caregive twice as long as any other illness. So on average, parents or any other family member are caring for about 8 years, and that's financially, in terms of time, giving caregivers support for making appointments and getting treatment. And so that's a lot of time and effort, and people need support and to know that they're not alone. There are families and houses all across our county that are going through this, and so there's no need to go through it alone.
And I also noticed that your site also provides information for veterans.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a couple different, NAMI National just launched a special portion of their site for first responders. So be they medical personnel or EMT, firefighters, other medical providers, because we know that they're facing an extremely difficult time right now. So there's a section for veterans. There's also a special class for families of veterans called NAMI Homefront. There's, like I said, that section for first responders. It's the newest section. There's a section for law enforcement. That's the tricky thing about mental health conditions. They affect us all across the lifespan, and different groups of people have different shared experiences around it.
Well, and I think that one thing that this pandemic has had a result in is kind of put a break on everything. And after our panic, because I can honestly say there was a little bit of panic in my house of what this pandemic was going to do, what it's going to look like, what was going to happen. Then it was kind of a look around and see, some of the things that were ignored, some things that needed to be addressed, and kind of realign, what were our priorities. Gloria, do you feel that was the same, that happened with you guys too?
Yeah, no, we have to start thinking about, okay, what is it that we need to, first of all, how are we going to be connecting with people and realizing that the work continues and we needed to be on board with it. I'm going to say technology, even though it impacted many communities, and I was also ready to also to ask Stephanie, I'm coming from a culture where mental health, you don't talk so much, some of the Latino community, Hispanic community sometimes they feel that this is something, no, this is not happening to us, and we don't understand about depression. We have to be happy. But the reality is that we suffer from that. So having to connect with the community and let them know that we're still connected via this medium, whether Zoom or any of the social media, that really helped in some instances. And we realized that we're getting more people to participate in many programs that we had in the past, because it couldn't be, they have to be at home, so they're going to be utilizing the system. Of course, we still have the digital divide for some communities, so that's something that continues to be a dilemma on how do we connect and how do we provide the services and benefits for it.
So Stephanie, how does that? How does NAMI reach out to culturally to Latinos, the Black and Brown community? How do you guys? What's the approach on that?
Sure. Well, there's definitely not a one-size-fits-all approach. I can tell you that locally here at NAMI Montgomery County, we do provide most of our programs in Spanish. And so we're doing a lot of work, a lot of trust building and community outreach in order to help and reach those hard to reach portions of our community. Stigma is absolutely alive and well in every community, and it is extremely prevalent in some communities more than others. And that's unfortunate because, we want to tell everybody it's not your fault and that it's treatable.
Well, I mean, I have to agree with you that the stigma is very alive and well. And particularly, I think with the less educated portion of the community, or the community that doesn't have access to health care, or they have insurance issues, and so they don't have, they can't afford, the treatment and the therapy and so is there anything out there for one, dealing with the stigma and bringing awareness to people, and two, how do you help folks that don't have the insurance or the finances to be able to, get treatment?
All of our support groups are free of charge. And so a NAMI support group you can do it because you're concerned about your own well-being or you're concerned about someone else's. That's how we delineate whether you're going to join the family support group or the connection support group. Believe me, plenty of people fall into both categories. It's just, who are you worried about at the moment? Are you getting help for yourself or because you care for someone else? So we try and lower that barrier as much as possible on our end. But you're right, there are a lack of providers who, number one, accept insurance. There's plenty who do not accept insurance, and that's something we're fighting for at the state level all the time. Reimbursement rates for a therapist versus a primary care that does the same exact job. We're fighting for insurance companies to pay providers equitably and to pay providers for treating mental health conditions, because we know untreated can lead to so many other health conditions, health disorders. So we're trying to fight, for payment and have providers accept insurance. If you don't have insurance, however, there are, if you call our helpline or if you email info@namimc.org, we can give you a list. It is not an all-encompassing list, but we kind of have our go-to resources of places in Montgomery County that provide either mental health care on a sliding scale or completely free of charge with no need to show proof of insurance. Because there are absolutely people who do need help. Who are not insured, and insurance should not be a barrier to making sure that you are alive and well.
Well, and so that is the struggle, right? I mean, and so I assume NAMI is engaged in the legislative process, not only in the states, but nationally, to raise awareness, reduce stigma, and to try to affect laws that make access to care, and that includes the therapy and all that is necessary to keep us mentally healthy, So I really appreciate you coming on the show and talking about this. And I think we're out of time. So
Wow.
I'm
You
going
went
to,
quickly.
it goes so fast, doesn't it? But I really want to thank you, Stephanie and Gloria, for sharing your personal experience when we were talking about how to enjoy doing nothing. That struck a chord with me, and I'm sure it struck a chord with everyone at home. I'd like to thank my guests. I'd like to thank my audience for watching us. And if you catch the show on YouTube channel, let others know. Our YouTube channel is Yesterday, Today, Tomorrow Show. Until next time, I'm Mariana Cordier.